The snow had been falling for hours, painting the quiet town of Silverpine in shades of white and silver. Through the frosted windows of his grand country home, Michael Reed watched the storm gather strength. The world beyond his glass walls seemed distant, almost unreal, while the warmth of his fire and the low hum of classical music wrapped him in isolation. Michael was a man everyone in Silverpine knew, though few truly knew him. At 43, he was the wealthiest man in the county, owner of half the land surrounding the lake, heir to a family construction empire, and a figure whispered about at every Christmas gala. But in truth, he lived alone. His wife had left years ago, taking with her the laughter that once filled this house. Since then, he had filled the silence with work and the hollowness of success with things: art, fine wine, imported furniture, objects that looked beautiful yet meant nothing. That night, the storm raged so violently that the motion sensor lights in his backyard flicked on and off. Michael frowned. He grabbed his coat and flashlight, stepping out into the biting wind. His boots crunched on the snow as he crossed the patio. He was checking the Christmas decorations, giant boxes he'd ordered for the staff to set up the next morning, when he noticed something odd. One of the large cardboard boxes he had left near the shed was trembling. At first, he thought it was the wind. But as he moved closer, his flashlight caught something: movement inside. He froze. Then, carefully, he lifted the edge of the box. Inside, curled up under a threadbare blanket, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 9. Her cheeks were red from the cold, her fingers blue. She blinked against the light and whispered, her voice hoarse, "Please don't send me away." Michael's breath caught in his throat. "What are you doing here?" he asked softly, though his voice trembled. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to. I just needed somewhere warm. I thought no one lived here." The storm held around them. Without another word, he took off his coat and wrapped it around her. "Come inside," he said. "Now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who still step up when the world turns away, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to see will restore your faith in humanity. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Comment below with your country and region, and let us celebrate the kindness that connects us all. Now, let's begin. Inside the mansion, the warmth of the fireplace made her shiver harder, as if her body finally remembered what heat felt like. She sat on the edge of the couch, clutching his coat. Michael knelt beside her, seeing the way her small hands trembled. "What's your name?" "Lila." "Lila what?" She hesitated. "Just Lila." He brought her soup from the kitchen, and as she ate slowly he asked, "Where are your parents?" Her eyes lowered to the bowl. "My mom, she got sick. We were staying in a shelter, but they didn't let me stay after she..." Her voice broke. "I tried to find my aunt, but she moved. I didn't know where else to go." Michael's chest tightened. He looked at her thin frame, the dirt on her sleeves, the way she flinched when the wind rattled the windows. She had been living out there, in his backyard, in a box meant for decorations. That night he gave her his guest room. She fell asleep clutching a pillow, her breathing shallow but peaceful for the first time in days. Michael stood in the doorway for a long time, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. Something inside him, something he thought had died long ago, stirred. The next morning, Silverpine woke under a thick blanket of snow. Michael called the local shelter, the police, the social services. They all said the same thing: they were overcrowded. It was Christmas Eve. They could look into it after the holidays. He hung up the phone, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: anger, sharp and clear. Lila stood at the window, watching children build a snowman on the other side of the gate. "They look happy," she whispered. "You could go join them," he said gently. She shook her head. "They wouldn't want me there." He didn't answer. But that night he drove into town and returned with 2 pairs of mittens, boots, and a small red coat with a fur hood. When he handed them to her, She gasped as if he'd given her treasure. For me? He nodded. For you. Over the next few days, the house changed. Lila's laughter began to fill the halls. The smell of hot cocoa replaced the scent of old wine. Michael found himself listening, really listening, to the sound of another heartbeat in his home. He helped her decorate the Christmas tree, though his attempts were clumsy. She taught him how to tie ribbons the proper way and told him stories about the stars she used to watch with her mother. One evening, as they sat by the fire, she said quietly, "You don't smile much." He looked at her, surprised. "Don't I?" "Not really. But your eyes do sometimes." He didn't know what to say. On Christmas morning, Lila woke to find a single wrapped box by the tree. Inside was a music box shaped like a snowflake. When she wound it up, a soft tune filled the room, melancholic and beautiful. "It was my mother's," Michael said. "Now it's yours." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, and for the first time in years, it felt real. But peace, as always, was fragile. 2 days later, there was a knock at the door. A social worker stood outside, holding a file. Someone had reported seeing a vagrant child on the property. Lila's face drained of color when she saw the woman's badge. "I'm here to take the girl," the worker said. "We'll find a suitable place for her." "She's safe here," Michael insisted. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed. You can't just take in a child without authorization." As they led her to the car, Lila turned back, tears streaming down her face. "You said I could stay," she cried. Michael stood frozen on the porch, watching the car disappear down the snowy road. The silence that followed was unbearable. That night, the fire burned low, and the house felt colder than it ever had before. Days passed. Michael couldn't work. He couldn't eat. The echo of her laughter haunted the halls. Then, one morning as he walked through town, he saw her, standing outside the shelter gates, clutching the same blanket she'd arrived with. The social worker had moved on. There was no space for her anywhere. Without thinking, he crossed the street and knelt in the snow beside her. "Come home," he said softly. "But they'll take me away again." "Not this time." He stood and took her hand. "We'll do it right." It took weeks of paperwork, interviews, and background checks. But Michael didn't stop. For the first time in years, he fought for something, not for profit, not for reputation, but for love. When the adoption papers were finally approved, the clerk smiled and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Reed. She's officially yours." Lila looked up at him, eyes shining. "Really?" He nodded. "Really?" The following Christmas, Silverpine glowed brighter than ever. In the center of the town square stood a tall tree decorated with golden stars and one small cardboard box at its base, painted silver and tied with a red ribbon. People asked about it, but only Michael and Lila knew its meaning. Every year, they placed that box under the tree, a reminder of the night a girl found shelter in the cold and a man rediscovered his heart. Years later, when Lila was grown, she would often tell the story to her own children, the tale of how love found them in the unlikeliest place. And every time it snowed in Silverpine, she'd look out the window, smile, and whisper, "Thank you, Michael," knowing that the warmth in her heart began the night she was just a little girl, hiding inside a cardboard box in a stranger's yard, and that stranger opened the door. Which part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, so you won't miss any of our next emotional stories.